was old enough to vote in 1972. So I'm only 69, and I've already achieved that.
You only look 65, Jim. Good job.
All right, so I want to first start off by honoring and showing some appreciation for some of the other people who have served as national chair that are in the room with us right now. Just up here a moment ago was Mary Jingle. Where is she now? Mary, where are you? Well, let's have a round of applause for Mary Jingle for serving as national chair. We also have right here Mark Hinkle and Steve Dasbach is in the room. He's at the convention. People have probably know him, but let's give a round of applause for Steve Dasbach. It's not as easy to serve as national chair as it looks. So, sorry. Oh, and Jeff Neal. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Jeff Neal, where are you? He was on my list. Is he here? Jeff Neal. There we go. Thank you for reminding me this. And let's give a round of applause to all the other folks who are not here who served as national chair and other officers of the party. In fact, if you served as an officer of the national party, please stand up. All the LMC, other people. All right. JD. All right, there we go. All right, great. Well, it's just important, I think, that we always start our meetings by doing something that really shows that we really are a political party. So I want right now everyone who is either an office holder or a candidate for public office to stand up and be recognized, please. That's hard work. Office holder and other running candidates. Thank you very much. You are the proof that we are, in fact, a political party and not a debate society. So let's get down to debating. We have a timer up here. The first thing that we're going to do is, well, first of all, let me quickly introduce. They're going to introduce themselves. They have 2 minutes apiece to introduce themselves. But the announced chair candidates we have here today are Joshua Smith, Joe Bishop Benjamin, and Mike Schiffer. They are going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and to give their opening comments, and then we have questions that they have seen, and I'm going to just randomly ask, and then there'll be about a minute and a half for them to respond, but they'll have the timer there. So let's get started. I'll start with you, Joshua. Would you please start the 2 minute, so your 2 minute introduction?
Hello, my California colleagues. Most of you know that I'm Joshua Smith. Most of you also know that I ran for LNC chair in 2018 on a platform of membership recruitment and retention, more aggressive media, candidate and affiliate support, and focused messaging. I lost that race, but that platform is still good. And I took that platform when I won my LNC at-large seat, and I used it to the best of my ability with the current position I have. And we have found success in the form of huge membership growth. In fact, our largest and fastest membership growth in a non-presidential year in over a decade. 30% of our current membership, or just about 1/3, joined in 2019. So now I'm running again for LNC chairman, so I can use the visibility afforded by that position to be even more successful with my already proven platform. These are no longer just stated goals and dreams for the LP. These are tangible successes. I hope that the California delegates will give me the opportunity to do this on a much grander scale. Thank you guys so much.
Joe, you look like you're ready to go. You're next, sir.
Thank you, California, for hosting us, and thank each and every one of you for what you do to achieve a world set free in our lifetime. I'm Joe, and I'm impatient. I'll admit, I'm not the loudest, not the tallest. My skill is I'm good at building organizations to do extraordinary things. I joined the LP over 20 years ago as a teenager at San Diego County Fair. I've been a candidate, an activist, and a state chair. Like many of you, I pour a lot of time and money and hard work into this party because we're impatient. From my day job, I know firsthand what a difference even one principled libertarian at the legislative negotiating table can make. And every day we aren't electing principled libertarians to public office is one more day of $3 billion added to the national debt. It's one more day of 4,500 more Americans arrested for nonviolent drug offenses. It's one more day of 20 more veteran suicides. If all it took to win was to have the best ideas, the best messaging, the most podcasts and Facebook posts, the thoroughest bylaws, we would have won already, 10 times over. But that's not enough. On the National Committee, I've worked across caucuses to achieve important results, like resources for on-the-ground infrastructure, prioritizing fundraising for the first time, and finally balancing the LNC budget. It's not just theory for me. I've built organizations as a nonprofit executive and board member. I've fundraised, I've hired and fired, I've done over 1,000 media interviews, navigating egos, minimizing drama, and championing good ideas across the finish line. My name is Joe Bishop Henchman, and I'm running for chair of the Libertarian Party to work with you to help our party to win.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Mike Shipley. I'm also running for Libertarian Party chair. I've been a member and an activist of I've been a member and an activist of this party since 2007. I was brought in by Ron Paul. I've been a lifetime member since 2015. I'm currently a vice chair of the Arizona Libertarian Party, a former state party secretary, and a former county party secretary. I chaired a referendum campaign in 2017 that gathered 25,000 signatures and raised almost $10,000. I chaired an anti-inaugural ball in the state party convention in 2017. That party's legendary, by the way. We raised almost $4,000. I organized a retention campaign in 2016 to hold on to Gary Johnson campaign voters and try to get them into the party. And I also implemented an LP 101 program that onboarded new volunteers and introduced them to the party and the bylaws and kind of softened the shock of just showing up at a convention and like witnessing all this. So that was helpful. Something you should know about ballot access in Arizona is that it's mathematically impossible for us due to some things that the GOP legislature did to even get our candidates on the ballot. So I have the blessing of getting to channel a lot of my energy into the national party. So a lot of my activist career that you're most familiar with is kind of this culture shift that the party is going through, right? So I started by founding a chapter of the Phoenix Pink Pistols. This was like my first libertarian organizing in 2007. I went on, my first big responsibility in this party was chairing outright libertarians. That introduced me to some challenges and some opportunities for growth and to kind of maximize how our narrative actually resonates with people outside the party and the misconceptions that they have. I went on to found the Libertarian Caucus, I co-founded the Audacious Caucus, and I co-founded the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. My time is up, so I'll come back to my ideas later.
All right, we're going to go into the questions now. Each candidate, of course, will have 75 seconds to give an answer. The first question is, since this is an important year for political parties, the focus of the nation is on political parties and candidates. What is the most important objective of the Libertarian Party and the National Committee, the National Party in 2020? I start with you, Mike, since we did the other one.
Thank you. So on the heels of a lot of exciting transformation work, I introduced a unity campaign that's building bridges of trust between left and right libertarians. And I think that we're in a perfect position to really capitalize and maximize on everybody's talents. because what we're seeing in the mainstream population is a kind of, back and forth between left and right-wing populism. And I think that we're in a really strong position when we can actually surface the portions of the libertarian narrative, that anti-authoritarian spirit, that will speak to them in that moment when they are having an anti-authoritarian glimmer of like an impulse that there must be something else out there. So I think I've developed a vocabulary, and I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling because my priorities, we're on important objective, but okay. My priority is that we have a chance to make a new first impression, because when my job was to figure out how to reach gender and sexual minorities, I realized that the false impressions of us that are out there are real. It doesn't matter if they're false, they're real to the people that see them in us. So we need to make a new first impression, and that is a #1 priority because people's minds have been closed. Out of time again.
All right, just go in reverse order, so Joe, go next, please.
To win. We have lots of important goals. We have fundraising goals, we have messaging goals, we have ballot access goals, we have candidate goals, but ultimately, the reason we exist is to elect people to public office and change public policy, as you voted today. Every decision that's going to come across my desk as chair of the National Party over the next 2 years, do we renew eCanvasser? Do we do a membership-based fundraising strategy versus a project and donor-based fundraising strategy with segmenting and moves management? Do we do ballot access for an entire state party or just the presidential candidate in a particular state? Do we do this or that? All of these decisions I'm going to make with the lodestar being, is this helping us build a party to win?
Win, 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 win.
Joshua, please give your answer.
Thank you, Jim. I believe the single most important thing we can focus on this year is getting our presidential candidate 50 state ballot access, so they have the opportunity to travel the country, spreading our message, waking people up to the horrors of the state, giving visibility to down ballot candidates, and boosting our activist pool. Presidential years afford the LP a chance at national media. And I intend to make sure we take full advantage of that national media. Thank you.
We offer the candidates 45 seconds for any rebuttals. Does anybody want to make a rebuttal to
Sure, I
anyone
will.
else's answer? Go ahead, Mike.
45 seconds. I would like to kind of rebut the idea that thinking in a space of how to make a new first impression has anything not to do with winning or just living in theory. My job when I started with Outright was to figure out how to reach gender and sexual minorities, and it has taken a huge chunk of labor to actually solve that problem. And that was always with the intention of figuring out how to actually reach not just those voters, but their allies, or anybody who doesn't want to vote for racists and bigots. So that was a challenge for me, and it was always with the love of this party and the desire to actually achieve a world set free in my lifetime. Well, all of our lifetimes. Hopefully mine.
Joshua, Joe, everybody okay? All right. Well, time passes fast. 2020 will be over before we hardly know it. So the next question is, where do you see the Libertarian Party in 10 years from now? Let's start with Joe this time, please.
10 years. Well, in 2 years, I'd like us to have the tools and the infrastructure for our activists and candidates to be able to win. I'd like to have have people set a positive example for a culture of building and teamwork. There's too much negativity and overcommitment that leads to good people leaving. I'd like to make sure that the LNC has clear results and is doing good oversight of those and giving good guidance and tools to activists and to the staff. I'd like to replicate the great work that Pennsylvania and Florida have done, electing dozens of local officials in the last 2 years. I'd like to see more local officials elected, like Nicholas Wildstar here running for mayor of Fresno. So that's just in the next 2 years. So whatever that is, time's 5.
Mike, would you like to take a try at this one?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm not sure everyone will be wearing a mohawk, but maybe more of you will. But I definitely can say that we'll have full permanent ballot access and major party status in all 56. We're growing so fast, we're the fastest growing. But what I'm really into is this idea of a culture shift. And this isn't just vague, like hippie language for me. It's very real. So when I was having my Ron Paul phase in the late 2000s or whatever, I read this book about Andrew Jackson and how he defeated the central banks in the middle of the 19th century. And there was like this dramatic and rapid political realignment that swept like a different faction of a new party into power, and everything shifted, and people were like so on fire to abolish the central bank, and they like succeeded in doing that. And I remember thinking at the time, like I was so on fire for Ron Paul, and it felt like we're in the middle of one of those shifts. So I still feel like that is still snowballing, and I feel it accelerating around me. So when I talk about a culture shift, I'm not just talking about y'all wearing mohawks or whatever. I'm talking about leaning into the power of an anti-authoritarian unity vibe that can reach all of the people and those voters when they realize that that system is ruining their lives. So it kind of has a life of its own. I don't know if the exact 10 years will happen, but that's what I see, those 10 years being amazing.
Thank you much. Joshua.
Where do I see the party in 10 years? I want to see a viable and thriving American political party that puts fear into the hearts of the two-party system. I want us to have 1 million national members, creating a usable budget that gives us the opportunity to compete with the financial juggernauts of the two old parties. Membership is our #1 fundraising mechanism, and having 1 million members would change the political landscape forever. So in 10 years, I see the LP taking congressional and Senate races away from sad Republicans and Democrats. I see the LP keeping politicians who are scared of losing their jobs honest. And I see success. I see the hard work and blood and sweat and tears of our activists paying off. That's what I see the Libertarian Party in 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe everyone's answered. Are there any rebuttals that anybody has to any answers anyone else gave? Okay, then we get to move on to yet another question. An important component of the Libertarian National Party is the national office staff. The question is, how involved do you plan to be with the LPHQ and staff? Let's see, who have I not started with? Joshua, sorry. Please take this word first.
Well, I intend to support our staff in any way they need me to. These wonderful and hardworking people are hired to do the job because of their talents, and they're qualified for the job. I'm not a micromanager. I'm a servant leader. And my goal with the staff is to help boost the morale by giving them whatever tools they need to be more successful. I'd like to have weekly meetings with the ED so we can go over what is it that they need to have successful staff. And while I provide proper oversight, I will also be the biggest cheerleader of our staff in hopes of helping them see the true value that they bring to this party. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of headquarters as a business entity, it has an executive director, and it's their job to do the managing. So my job, first of all, is not to mistake myself as a boss or a micromanager of those people. With all of that said, they're also members of this party. And so they don't actually work for me, I work for them. And so my goal would be to offer them the same service that I'm offering to all of you, is to facilitate this kind of decentralized vibe. And this doesn't come naturally, right? Top-down logic is this idea that like, I have all the answers and I'm gonna centrally plan that. And what I've learned from my grassroots work is that it's really often about people that are so accustomed to having their power demanded from them that they give it without even thinking. And so like the constant cycle is like giving people their power back when they don't even realize they gave it away, and empowering the people around me. And the office staff are party members just like that. So if they have an awesome idea, let's talk about it and figure it out without going over your, technical boss's back, right? So Dan Fishman is still gonna like, you get my point, right? My job is not to like interfere in headquarters. It's to figure out what you all want, how you want to use your resources through that headquarters and facilitate it happening.
Joe, would you give us your thoughts?
Would you mind repeating the question?
The question is, how involved do you plan to be with the staff at the national headquarters?
It's hard for me to imagine being more involved with our staff and our contractors than I am now. Pretty much on a daily basis, I'm answering an email or a message or a phone call from one of our staffers. Josh is right, they're loyal, they work very hard, helping them solve a problem they've encountered, or helping them overcome an obstacle that's been put in front of them. I live in DC, so I'm just up the road from the national office. I stop by pretty frequently, and it's essential that whoever is chair, and the chair is actually the CEO of the party, not just a person who delegates stuff to other people. It's essential that that person be constantly communicating with the staff, not just on a weekly basis, but on a continual basis to help them overcome those obstacles. It's something I've done for years and years as a COO of an organization, and I'm going to continue to do it. And because the thing we hear most from our staff members, the thing I hear most is we need clarity about what the expectations are. We need to understand our roles and our responsibilities, and then hold us accountable for them. And that's something that the LNC needs to start doing, and it's something the chair needs to start doing.
Does anybody want to comment or rebut anything? Mike?
I do. So I'm currently the chair of a 501c nonprofit that serves the addiction recovery community and that operates in a bottom-up fashion. So I'm extremely comfortable with what it means to understand that a CEO in the top-down world should not be a model for a CEO in a bottom-up structure. Just want you all to know that.
Okay. Any other follow-ups? Okay. Well, heard the word accountability a few times. The question now about the LNC is, what can you do to ensure the LNC is accountable, the members are accountable, and the body is accountable, and address any potentially non-productive behavior amongst LNC members or any subcommittees of the LNC? Big question. Do you understand? Is that a clear question? Okay. Joe, why don't you go first this time?
The LNC needs to act more like a board of directors than it has, which is what we are. A good board of directors proactively sets clear goals, establishes metrics, and then provides oversight on progress towards them. And we don't really do any of those things on the LNC right now. When I launch new programs in my day job and in my past jobs, we get all the principals in the room, do SWOT analysis and comparison of what other organizations are doing, and come up with a good program idea, try to vet it as best as we can, come up with the messaging for it, and then go out and get the fundraising for it. We kind of have all that backwards right now, and I think it's a lot of missed opportunities that we need to change. I've actually put forward a proposal to kind of abolish all of the existing committees on the LNC and replace them with true oversight committees, creating champions for some of our core priorities like fundraising and messaging and marketing and membership, and actually get our at-large members and our regional reps engaged. Because right now, really, the only job description for an at-large member is to show up, and that's not enough.
All right.
So the short answer is there's not much I can do as chair of the National Libertarian Committee to bring an iron fist down on the LNC members. The LNC is beholden to the delegation. It's not my job to babysit LNC members, but my hope is that with strong leadership, examples set, and a clear mission and vision, we will have an extremely productive Libertarian National Committee and subcommittees. And my hope is that it's one that makes all of the delegates proud.
Mike, we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. So first of all, again, with the top-down logic, I want to be really, it's important to me that I never reinforce that, because having everybody discover their individual power and fully embody it is our message to the public. And we have to embody that too. So the reality is, The regional and the at-large representatives don't work for the chair. They work for you. And my job is to understand that your power is not mine. It's my job to remind you that it's yours. So in terms of working with volunteers who are balancing many priorities, it's often about mentoring that person, reaching out, discovering what's really going on. Are you okay? Just doing a wellness check. I can't be the boss of people, but when I see them falling short, I know how that feels too. I've become overcommitted and I fall short and I fall into guilt or whatever it is, right? And a lot of times it's just a human touch with the volunteers so that they can become excited again. So my point with the whole they work for you, not for me, is that I won't power struggle against you. If you don't think the accountability that they need is like what I think, then those two things should not be in combat. So what I will do is continuously point members to the tools that they have, including transparency. My time is up, so you get the idea.
Jerry, would you like to follow up?
The main job of the chair, and we've got quite a few former ones in the room, so feel free to ask them, but at least in my view, the main job of the chair is to facilitate decisions. And both of those words are essential. So facilitate, because no, you're right, you can't boss around everybody. You certainly can't boss around a room of 17 to 28 libertarians. But you can provide a framework and a structure and a discussion after putting out the goal of what we want to accomplish. And that's absolutely doable. I've done it for years at multiple organizations. And decisions are important because, for example, we got to put together a budget every year. And if we're not going through the hard work of, well, what is our goal on ballot access? What is our goal on marketing? What is our goal on messaging? I'm not saying anybody impose anything, feed this information to your representatives so that it's conveyed and it bubbles up into what we decide. Because ultimately we gotta decide, are we spending money on this or spending money on that? And all the slogans in the world aren't gonna make that decision for you.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Joe. I think that a clear vision and goals set by a chair makes a productive board. So I just wanted to agree with him and thank you for that.
Any other follow-ups on this question? Okay. Just want to be sure before we move on. Well, let's see. One that may be a little controversial. Do you support having a process for termination of a membership of the Libertarian National Party, and what would that look like? Mike?
So no, I do not support ideological purges or anything that could be a slippery slope towards that. We have speech as a tool for that, and an example of that is when a member of the Libertarian Socialist Caucus decided they were a Stalinist. We isolated that person. We used our speech to let them know unequivocally they did not have a platform or a place among us, and they left. Having said that, I do think at the local level in particular, disruptive people, we do have a right as individuals to disassociate. So we had an example where, I'm not gonna name names up here, but an activist came in waving around a live stream and putting us on the spot because Nick Sarwark is CIA or something, and they're really mad about it. And we had to ask that person to leave. And I absolutely believe we had the right to remove that person from our space. They were making our meeting unproductive. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Joshua, you next on this one.
The short answer is that I do actually support it. I think that organizations should have the opportunity to protect itself fairly and through due process. To be honest though, I have not put much time into thinking about what that process would look like because I've been extremely focused on the things I've been doing to grow the party. But if people who are much smarter than me came to me with a viable option, I would certainly give it due consideration. Thank you.
And Joe, please.
Well, you did put forward a bunch of censure resolutions on people, so you found time
Once.
for that, so more than once. On this, I actually think Josh and Mike are both wrong. The chair has nothing to do with this question. It's up to you as the delegates to decide whether the LNC should have this power. Right now we don't, and I've consistently voted against efforts to do an end run around your decision to not give us that power. Now, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, that's up to you. I think there's pretty good reason that you have not given past LNCs this power, because I think there's legitimate worry that we will use it for political purges and all of that, and I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify, when I spoke disaffiliating with people or disassociating at the local level, the members of the LNC are never going to have to sit in a monthly county party meeting with any of the individuals that might be purged. So when I spoke of that being at the local level, it was a decentralization narrative, that the people that are having to sit in a meeting with those people actually every month are the only people who can really make a judgment as to whether they want to share space with those people. So just clearing that up. I do agree with the point about the delegates, though. That is a good point.
Joshua, you said you wanted?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that Joe said that I put forth several censure motions. I put forth one to censure a presidential candidate who absolutely threatened to blow up our own national convention. I thought it was a good idea, but it wasn't a removal motion, so thank you.
Other comments on this before we move on? Okay,
Yeah.
so, just to be sure. All right, so, well, let's go the other
Actually,
direction.
let me just say one thing.
Oh, sure, go.
Libertarians do not need anyone to tell them who to disassociate with. That's all I need.
Okay, I'm short and sweet. So the next question is, how do you plan to increase membership and fundraising for the national party during your term if you're elected? Joe, why don't you go first on this one?
Well, let me take fundraising first. So I've run organizations that have raised millions of dollars. And the key to that is not doing a membership-based fundraising model, but focusing on how to raise money from major gifts through a program called News Management, which is the industry best practice standard, making sure that you're thanking donors, making sure that you're targeting stuff. Every time, on membership, I mean, membership is a tough term to use because it's an umbrella term. It covers activists, people who want to be considered activists, people who want to be considered donors, people who want to be considered candidates, and we don't segment it very well right now. Every time somebody signs up as a member to be an activist, and we send them a bunch of fundraising letters, we're wasting everybody's resources. Every time somebody becomes a donor, because say, we're the only party defending the Second Amendment, and we're not sending them projects promoting gun rights, that's a missed opportunity. So I would be very focused on building up a fundraising operation, building on the work that I and several others on the LNC have championed this year to make fundraising a true priority, and building the first fundraising team that we have ever had here. You have to be very careful with membership fundraising. You can go broke doing that. I could spend time doing 1,000 phone calls, raising $25 a piece, raise $25,000, or we could focus on 100 large donors and raise multiple times that.
Mike, you want to go next?
Thank you. So one of the really cool things about being able to present a more balanced anti-authoritarian message to the public, and if we're able to successfully sort of leverage that for a new first impression, is that it opens up a wide pool of people that never would have considered themselves members before. I take the point about membership fundraising, and I also say it's just kind of boring and unimaginative. I would think that since the chair has to travel so often, and if we're making this new first impression, that we could do like cool events on the ground. And I say this also for like a tactical reason, is that there's this kind of strategy of building from local races up, right? Like if we're able to win more city halls and maybe more state legislatures. Well, for that to happen, the resources should not really be centralized, they should be in the local affiliates. So I would think that as we're traveling, there's this opportunity to do creative events, different things where the revenue is kind of shared between that local affiliate, and if national needs money, we can take some of that, you know what I mean? But I don't think that we should centralize so much money in the treasury that we're having to squabble over it when we run short.
All right, Joshua, you're next.
So I'm going to disagree a little bit with both of these guys. If you look at this party currently, membership is what keeps our lights on. Without membership, we would be failing. You increase membership and fundraising the same way you win elections, by knocking on doors and wearing holes in your shoes. I have a proven track record of working for this party, and that work has bore fruit in the form of membership growth and increased revenue. No one can deny that. We all have our own dedicated links. And I'm here tonight to make a commitment to you that regardless of how this campaign turns out, that work will never stop for me. So, thank you guys.
Any rebuttals or further comments? Joe?
Our members are the lifeblood of this party, but we can't pay for everything that we want to do just with $25 a person. And in fact, if you ask Dan Fishman, if you divide out the cost of what it takes to do now, divided by the number of members, it's $100. So if you're giving less than $100 a year, we're actually losing money on you. We still are glad you're here, because it's not just about the money, certainly not. Which is why I want to think about our members not as piggy banks, but as activists and donors and candidates, and targeting each of those messages for each of those people. Yeah.
All right, so this one might be short and simple to answer. The question that you were given in advance is, can you understand and explain a balance sheet? But I would invite you to also add any comments you have about your experience or thoughts and abilities to manage the affairs financially of the national party relative to the balance sheet. Thank you. Oh yes, let's see. Joe, why don't you go first this time?
So the first LNC meeting of my term, we got the budget proposal. And I had a $250,000 deficit proposed on top of $100,000 of unpaid bills already. So I don't know how we were gonna go 250 more in the red. And we sat through the whole first day, and I'm a freshman on the LNC. I'm waiting for somebody else to step forward with the plan to fix it, and it didn't happen. So that night I found myself talking with Richard Longstreth, who's the Region 1 representative, Arizona, Colorado, Western states. He's a radical, I'm a pragmatist. We disagree on a whole bunch of stuff. We disagree on the direction of the party, on messaging we should emphasize, on our 2016 presidential candidates. But he's an auditor and accountant. I'm a lawyer and has worked at a lot of nonprofits and on boards. We both can read a balance sheet, and we saw that balance sheet. And we knew we didn't want to vote for that proposal. But we were elected officials, so we felt it was incumbent on us to present an alternative. So we worked through the night, went through line by line in that budget, rooted out all the slush funds, trimmed where we could to keep core expenses going, and the next morning we presented a balanced proposal. Honestly, we thought it was going to get voted down 2 to 15, but at least we tried. And in the end, we rallied the day, and that's how the LNC finally balanced its budget. So yes, I can read a balance sheet.
Yeah, a balance sheet shows the assets of an organization, the liabilities, and the equity. It lays out an entity's financial status. But this question seems a bit off to me. I believe the delegates do their due diligence to elect the right people for these positions. I have full faith in our delegates to pick a treasurer that will do a great job of working on balance sheets. I will, of course, work closely with the treasurer on our budget, but then it still needs to be approved by our board, and I'm glad to have people like Joe who are great at working on those kind of things. My goal is to see the treasurer staying up late at night because there is so much money coming into our organization from our fundraising that they have nightmares about those balance sheets. Thank you, guys.
Please give us your thoughts.
So, this is an interesting kind of maybe elementary question. The balance sheet shows your bottom line. But it was kind of interesting when I read the question because it kind of goes into some thoughts I had had when I was reviewing the paperwork earlier that week. And what struck me about looking at that balance sheet and its bottom line is that that number doesn't actually tell me about the financial health of the entire structure. Now don't get me wrong, it's the local affiliate's job and all that to raise your own money, and I'm not suggesting that it's my job to solve that problem. I'm actually leading into my decentralization thing that if we're centralizing the resources to the point, ultimately the pie can grow when the party grows, but at any one moment it's a fixed pie. And I know myself that we're competing for the same pool of donors for the same size pie of money that's only growing as we successfully grow. It's almost like a broken window fallacy. If I take $500 out of the money that I would give to one and like give it to another affiliate because they needed it for a table or something, all I've done is like move money around inside the party. I haven't like raised any money whatsoever in the big picture. So I'm out of time, so you'll have to extrapolate from that where I was going.
Any rebuttals or further comments on this question from anyone? All right. Well, so the next question is, how, with all these members and all this money, how can the LP best encourage and support local campaigns for public office? Joshua, please go for this one first.
This is an awesome question. I've got the opportunity and the honor to work with local candidates all over the country, whether through the Mises Caucus or the party, or just my own personal time. I've probably worked on, in the last 2 years, 40 campaigns. It's been amazing. National should be supporting the growth of the local and state affiliates. Oh wait, sorry. I'm reading that one. Oh no, I'm reading that. Local candidates?
Local candidates
Sorry.
and campaigns is the question.
All right, so, sorry, my bad. I think that we can actually help local candidates by building infrastructure, by sending new activists to these local and state affiliates. Those activists become candidates, they become activists, they become campaign managers, they become fundraisers, and I think that's the best possible way that the National Party can help these local candidates is by helping to send new activists to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, would you like to go second on this one?
I'd love to. I'm glad this question came next because it just lets me kind of complete my thought. But how can the LP best encourage and support local campaigns? We can quit competing for resources and recognize that if we really want to put our money where our mouth is, and we believe that building that party from the bottom up and winning local races and like building this farm team idea that you've heard, if we're really supporting them, that means supporting them in all of the different ways. And I had a great conversation with Ken Molman the other day. He's been working on the affiliate support committee and the tech committee, and there are a lot of really cool opportunities for using technology to reduce the cost of doing things and decentralize without actually crossing over, like autonomy bounds. You see what I mean? So when you offer different digital tools that allow the local affiliates to operate in cool new ways that aren't as costly, then the financial pie can start growing at all the different levels. And that's my solution. Before I launch into another with only 11 seconds left, I'll just leave my thought there.
Okay, Joe.
Would you mind repeating the question again?
Yes, the question is how should, oh wait, I moved around, let me move back up there. How can the LP best encourage and support local campaigns for public office?
We have two stellar campaign consultants, Kara Schultz and Apollo Pizzello. If you haven't been to their trainings, go to them, you're gonna learn a ton. Apollo came to a couple of us, including me, with a crazy idea. And I love crazy good ideas. He'd done the math and he'd looked at races where we can elect principled libertarians for the lowest amount of dollars. It's a lot of state legislative races in the Mountain West, Utah, Montana, Wyoming. And some of you may know Bethany Baldus, who won on election day but lost on absentees for her state legislative race. So he put together a proposal of 20 of these races, and he's going to go out and find, and he has found, good libertarians, active in their communities, great at messaging, who can win those races. And they have to raise their own campaign funds. We're not putting in any money on that. What we're helping with is strategic help, messaging help, door knockers, phone bankers, infrastructure. And so we got 20 of those running. I don't think all 20 are going to win. I also don't think 0 are going to win. And if we're able to elect state legislators in multiple races, we can then take that as a template and use it in other states like here in California.
Any follow-up or anything? Okay. Well, here's an easy one. During your term of office, we are going to celebrate the Libertarian Party's 50th anniversary. How would you foresee us celebrating? What are your thoughts and plans for the anniversary? Mike, why don't you take this one first, please?
So as a proud and unapologetic degenerate, I will throw the most kick-ass banger this party has ever seen, and I have a proven ability to do this. If you just look at the live streams that came out of the anti-inaugural ball, it was kick-ass. So people will be talking about it for the next 50 years. I know I didn't read that off my notes. That was a good line.
Joshua, you want to take a second shot?
Sure. Hopefully at the inauguration of the first elected libertarian to president of the United States, right? And that's the dream, that's the goal. Short of that, I'm sure my LNC colleagues will have several ideas that I'm looking forward to hearing. I know that with the wonderful creativity that our members bring, it'll be a year to remember. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Joe, it's your turn.
We will have the tools and resources for our candidates and activists to win. We'll have more, we're gonna send Kara Schultz to more states than she can ever possibly imagine. We're gonna have campaign training and data tools, phone banking opportunities. I wanna recognize an activist every month for what they're able to do. We need to have more positive reinforcement. I wanna have affiliate in a box resources. When I became state chair at DC, I called national and asked, all right, what do you have for me? Because I gotta file FEC, I gotta put on a state convention, I gotta set up working committees and get people engaged, and they didn't really have anything. I think we need affiliate in a box, and state convention in a box, and putting on a state convention in a box, resources for our people. I would like to see a culture change. I'd like to see us remembering that we are not the enemy, that the other side is the enemy, the Democrats and Republicans, that we all agree more than we disagree, and we should be speaking more positively with each other than negatively. I'd like to create support networks for all those new elected officials so that they don't feel abandoned by us after they get elected. And yeah, and let's throw a good party too. I guess in Colorado. So.
Party.
Any rebuttals or further comments from anyone on that question? Okay. Well, we're about to the end here, so we're going to allow them 2 minutes to make their closing statements, and we're done. So Joshua, would you like to lead off on this? Thank you.
Look, I've already been doing the things I said I was going to do in 2018. I've fundraised. I brought thousands of new members to their local and state affiliates around the country. People have gotten involved as activists and leaders. I've been aggressive with the media. And most importantly, I used creative ways to help candidates and affiliates, whether through chairing the National Affiliate Support Committee that's been extremely efficient and active, or helping personally on campaigns. I'm no longer running on hopes and dreams. I'm running on verified, proven results. And if you elect me chair, I will have the opportunity to magnify these results tenfold. I do hope that you guys will join me in Austin to help make this party the competitor that we all know it is. Thank you, guys.
Joe, would you like to go second?
By national convention, I'll have attended 26 state conventions last year and this year. And I love doing it because it gives me a chance to learn what works, learn what doesn't work, and to share those best practices and to interact with so many libertarians. And the question I always try to ask is, how did you become a libertarian? Because if we're going to grow the party, if we're going to get more candidates, we need to know what we're doing right so we can reinforce that success. So I figure it's only right that I tell you how I became a libertarian. When I was growing up in my neighborhood, we had an elderly couple across the street, the Johnsons. Great people, everybody's babysitters. And one day, the powers that be decided that a new highway was going to have to go in on that street. And the Johnsons would have to be moved. So their house was taken from eminent domain. I was a kid. I didn't really understand why this was happening, other than the Johnsons were being made to move against their will. So they said their sad goodbyes, and their house became a weed-filled empty lot. Because for whatever reason, they then, after all that happened, they decided, you know what, let's reroute the highway. So the whole thing was pointless. And at that young age, I learned that maybe the people in power don't know what they're doing. So, we are all libertarians because we understand that. And it's what motivates me, it's what drives me. I want to see a world set free in our lifetime. And like I said, maybe I'm not the best podcast interview, maybe I'm not the best sign-waving activist, but I can build an organization and work with you to build our party to win. Thank you.
Mike, you get the last word.
Thank you. So, there's this old idea that we're divided by radicals and pragmatists. And it's a really old idea. It's kind of already antiquated, like bottom unity already swept that away, right? But I'd like to give you this idea that what was really going on there is this fundamental sort of tension between dreamers and doers, right? There are people that want to get things done, and there are people that are just like high on really cool ideas. And here's the thing about me, I am a dreamer and a doer. So I come up with really creative things, and I don't know how I do it, but I implement them as like actual structural content. I have just systematically transformed this party by going on instinct. When someone is flashing around their business knowledge in a top-down, implementing top-down logic, what they're really telling you is that they make a great at-large representative, because it's the job of the regional and at-large representatives, or they make a good regional, to do that. The chair of the party is supposed to let those solutions like rise through everybody's and just facilitate it, be an inspiring figure, and I've demonstrated that I can do that. So I get excited, I wave my hands around, I am an activist, but I get shit done, and it's cool when it happens. So I think that you should consider electing someone like me. Thank you.
A round of applause for all of our candidates. Okay, and I've been told we have a straw poll going on, and that there's a box, and Kara Schultz back there is holding up the bright red box that was used for the tokens for the presidential debate. And so please put your straw poll there, and don't go away. We're going to have the presidential candidates up here immediately and get a presidential candidate debate going. Thank you very much.
All right. And sorry if you guys don't like this video. You can welcome to hit the dislike if you guys don't like it. Hit like if you do. I don't really understand all this, and you guys probably think it's boring as heck, and I'm sorry, but I'm stuck here and I'm making a video because why not? All right, I gotta get the next video going, so please like, subscribe, share. All right, I'm sure.